There comes a moment in every person's life when the right thing and the easy thing are not the same. Sometimes it happens quietly, in a meeting, when you're asked to agree with something you know is wrong. Sometimes it's louder, when life corners you with a choice that will define who you really are. Most people think they're moral until life tests them, until doing what's right costs them something, a relationship, a reputation, a career, or a dream. That's when morality stops being a theory and becomes an act of courage. This book isn't about being good. It's about being strong enough to stay good when it hurts. It's about the inner muscle that separates people who live by their values from those who abandon them when it's inconvenient. That muscle is moral toughness. You see, moral toughness isn't about perfection. It's not about always knowing what's right. It's about having the strength to face difficult choices without hiding behind excuses, fear, or the crowd's approval. It's about choosing integrity over comfort, again and again, until it becomes part of who you are. Why does this matter? Because in a world full of gray areas, moral toughness is the only compass that doesn't lose direction. It's what helps you say no when everyone else says yes. It's what allows you to sleep at night, knowing you didn't betray yourself. And it's what earns the respect that can't be bought or faked. Throughout this book, we'll explore 10 essential principles, real practical techniques that will help you develop this kind of toughness. You'll learn how to think clearly when emotions blur your judgment. You'll discover how to resist manipulation, how to act decisively when the consequences scare you, and how to protect your values when the world tests your limits. By the end, you'll understand something most people never do, that moral strength is not born in comfort, but forged in pressure, in the exact moments when your choices define the person you are becoming. This is not a book of rules. It's a book of inner discipline. And if you read it to the end, you might find a secret that most never do. The quiet power of someone who cannot be broken by circumstance, temptation, or fear. Chapter 1. Every person carries within them an invisible compass. It's not made of metal or magnets, and yet it points somewhere deeper than north, toward what you believe is right. When life is calm, it's easy to trust that compass. But when storms hit, when fear, pressure, or temptation shake your world, that compass starts spinning. You hesitate, you doubt, and sometimes you even convince yourself that wrong isn't really wrong if everyone else is doing it. Moral toughness begins at that moment of confusion, when you choose to follow your compass even when no one else does. Most people think morality is about knowing what's right, but knowledge isn't the problem. Most of us know when we're crossing a line. The real challenge is acting on that knowledge when it costs us something. The distance between knowing and doing, that's where moral weakness lives. And closing that distance is where moral strength is built. Think of your inner compass as something alive. Every time you ignore it, you damage it a little. It becomes quieter, less trustworthy. You start rationalizing, telling yourself, it's not that bad, or I'll do better next time. But every small compromise is a vote for who you'll become. You don't lose integrity all at once. You lose it piece by piece, decision by decision. Here's the truth. You can't always control the world, but you can always control your alignment with your values. That alignment is the foundation of moral toughness. People often say, I had no choice, but that's rarely true. What they mean is that the other choices were painful. And that's what moral toughness is, the ability to choose pain over dishonor, to pay the price of integrity without resentment. It's not about being fearless. It's about acting rightly despite fear. Imagine a soldier who refuses an unjust order, knowing could destroy his career. Or a businesswoman who exposes corruption in her company, knowing it might ruin her financially. Or a friend who tells the truth even when it ends a friendship. These people don't act because it's easy. They act because their compass won't let them do otherwise. So how do you strengthen this compass? You begin with self-honesty. You can't be morally tough if you lie to yourself. Most moral failures start not with a big act of evil, but with small self-deceptions. It's not my responsibility. Everyone does it. No one will know. Those are the whispers that bend the needle of your compass until you can no longer tell which way is right. Next, practice reflection. Every day, ask yourself, did I do what I believe was right today, or what was easy? That single question can change how you live. It forces you to face yourself before the world does. Finally, remember this: moral toughness is a habit, not a moment. It's not something you summon only in crises. It's something you build in everyday choices. When you return the extra change, admit mistake, or refuse to gossip. These moments may seem small, but they're the quiet training ground for the day when the stakes are high. When that day comes, and you'll find that your compass doesn't spin anymore. It points steady, even in the storm. Because by then, your sense of right and wrong won't depend on others' approval or convenience. It will depend only on one thing: the strength of your own character. And that is where moral toughness begins, not in the battlefield, but in the silence of your own decisions. Chapter 2. Everyone loves the idea of integrity until they have to pay for it. It's easy to praise honesty, courage, and principle when they're theoretical. But the moment they threaten something you care about, your comfort, your reputation, your success, integrity starts to feel expensive. That's the first real test of moral toughness. Are you willing to do what's right even when it hurts? We live in a world that rewards results, not righteousness. People often get promoted for performance, not principles. Those who cut corners, flatter the powerful, or bend rules sometimes seem to get ahead. And those who hold their ground are labeled difficult or naive. But here's what most people never realize. Integrity is not about winning in the short term. It's about being able to live with yourself in the long term. Every decision you make has two consequences: an external one and an internal one. Externally, you might lose money, friends, or opportunities by choosing what's right. But internally, you gain something far more valuable: self-respect. The kind that no one can give or take away. And the reverse is true. Every time you betray your values to protect your comfort, you pay an invisible cost: the erosion of your own self-trust. When you lie to yourself, a small fracture appears inside you. You might not notice it right away, but it grows. You begin to question your own strength, your own worth. And when the next hard choice comes, you hesitate longer. The more you compromise, the weaker your integrity becomes. To understand moral toughness, you must understand this paradox. Doing the right thing often makes your life harder at first, but easier later. Doing the wrong thing often makes your life easier at first, but harder later. A person without integrity is like a house built on sand. It might look fine for a while, but the moment the storm comes, everything collapses. A person with integrity, however, can stand through the worst weather because their foundation is solid. Moral toughness is the discipline to think beyond immediate comfort. It's the ability to look at a situation and ask, what choice will I be proud of in 10 years? When you think this way, the illusions of convenience disappear. You stop asking, what will people think? And start asking, what will I think of myself? Consider this. Integrity isn't about being flawless. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up the same way when no one's watching as when everyone is. It's about being the kind of person who doesn't need cameras, applause, or rules to do the right thing. In fact, integrity shines brightest in private moments, the ones no one will ever see. When you close a deal and could quietly take more than your share. When you could shift the blame to someone else and no one would ever know. When you could cheat, lie, or manipulate and still come out looking perfect. Those are the moments that reveal your true strength. Not because of what others see, but because of what you see when you look in the mirror afterward. To build moral toughness, you must accept that integrity has a price. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's status, friendship, or even love. But the one thing it never costs you is your soul. People who live without integrity may seem to win faster, but they always lose deeper. They lose peace, sleep, and the quiet confidence that comes from being whole. People with moral toughness, on the other hand, may walk a harder road, but every step is solid. They don't live afraid of exposure, because there's nothing to expose. The question isn't whether integrity has a cost. The question is, are you strong enough to pay it? Because if you are, what you gain in return is something priceless. The unshakable certainty that no matter what happens outside you, you will never betray yourself inside. Chapter 3. Courage is often misunderstood. Most people imagine it as bold, heroic action, standing up to danger, speaking truth to power, running into the fire while others run away. But in reality, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a whisper that says, do the right thing, even if it hurts. Moral toughness is built on this kind of courage, the kind that values integrity more than comfort. Comfort is seductive. It tells you to stay silent when you should speak. It convinces you to stay where it's safe, even when you know it's wrong. Comfort disguises itself as peace, but it's really avoidance. And every time you choose comfort over courage, your strength fades a little. You've seen it before in workplaces, families, or even friendships. Someone witnesses injustice but says nothing. Someone knows the truth but stays quiet because it's not their business. Someone gives up their principles just to fit in or avoid conflict. These people aren't evil, they're just scared. But fear, when obeyed, becomes a habit. And that habit kills integrity faster than anything else. Here's the hard truth. You can't grow morally tough in comfort. Growth happens in discomfort, in the tension between what's easy and what's right. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. You can train this decision like a muscle. Every time you face fear and act anyway, your courage grows stronger. Every time you avoid fear, it grows stronger instead. One of them will always win. It's up to you which one. Think about it this way. When you stand up for something, you risk something. That's the price of courage. Maybe it's your reputation, maybe your security, maybe your acceptance. But courage always costs something. That's why it's rare, because most people aren't willing to pay the price. Yet, courage rewards you in a way comfort never can. Comfort gives you temporary relief. Courage gives you permanent strength. When you act bravely once, your mind remembers, I can handle this. And the next time fear appears, it has less power over you. That's how moral toughness grows, one act of courage at a time. There's another secret. Courage doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels terrible. Your hands shake, your heart races, your voice trembles. You feel exposed and alone. But that's not weakness. That's proof you're alive, proof that you're doing something that matters. The discomfort you feel in those moments is the sound of your character expanding. History remembers the people who chose courage over comfort, not because they were fearless, but because they were faithful to their values even when they were terrified. Think of whistleblowers who exposed corruption, leaders who refused to compromise their ethics, or everyday people who spoke up for someone being treated unfairly. They all had something to lose, but they did it anyway. That's moral toughness. In your own life, courage might not look dramatic. It might simply mean telling someone a hard truth, admitting a mistake, walking away from a deal that doesn't feel right, ending a friendship that's built on dishonesty. These acts don't make headlines, but they define who you are. If you wait until you feel brave to act bravely, you'll wait forever. Courage comes after action, not before. You act first, even with fear, and then realize you were stronger than you thought. So, the next time you're faced with a difficult choice, don't ask, "What will make me comfortable?" Ask, "What will make me proud?" Because comfort fades quickly, courage stays forever. And every time you choose it, you prove something powerful. That fear can visit you, but it cannot own you. That's what moral toughness really is, the refusal to let fear decide who you become. Chapter 4. Doing what's right sounds noble, but in real life, it's not glamorous, it's exhausting. It requires discipline, patience, and the ability to stay consistent even when you don't feel like it. Moral toughness, at its core, is not just about having strong values. It's about living them every single day, especially when no one is watching. Most people fail not because they don't know what's right, but because they don't have the discipline to follow through when emotions, convenience, or pressure interfere. The truth is, morality isn't built on emotion. It's built on consistency. You can't wait for the right mood to act with integrity. If you only do what's right when it feels good, you're not guided by principles. You're guided by moods. And moods are unreliable. One day you feel noble. The next day you feel tired or bitter. Discipline is what bridges the gap between intention and action. Think of moral discipline as a muscle. It doesn't grow from one grand act of goodness. It grows from repetition. It's built in the moments when you don't want to do the right thing, but do it anyway. When you admit you were wrong, even though your pride screams not to. When you keep a promise, even when it's inconvenient. When you choose honesty, even when it complicates things. Every time you make one of those choices, you strengthen your moral endurance. You make it a little easier to do the right thing next time. The problem with many people is that they treat morality like a performance, something to display when others are watching. But moral toughness doesn't need an audience. It's quiet, repetitive, and often invisible. It's saying no to small temptations no one else would even notice. It's doing your work honestly when you could cheat and get away with it. It's keeping your standards when compromise looks so much easier. This kind of consistency demands discipline. The same kind athletes use to train or soldiers use to prepare. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your training. In moral life, your training is a habit of doing what's right. And here's the paradox. The more disciplined you become, the freer you feel. Because discipline frees you from guilt, regret, and self-doubt. It gives you inner peace, the kind that can't be faked. People think discipline restricts them, but in truth, it liberates them from the chaos of weak choices. There's also a practical truth. Moral discipline saves you from moral exhaustion. When you always debate with yourself, should I do it or not? You drain energy. But when doing what's right becomes automatic, you can serve that energy for more important battles. You stop negotiating with your conscience. So, how do you train this discipline? Start with small acts. Return what doesn't belong to you. Admit when you exaggerate. Follow through on your promises. Avoid shortcuts that harm others, even slightly. These seem like minor things, but they are moral push-ups. Every one of them strengthens your integrity. You can also remind yourself of a simple rule. If you have to hide it, don't do it. If you wouldn't be proud to explain your decision publicly, it's probably not aligned with your values. Let that standard guide you, not what's profitable, convenient, or popular. Discipline and morality is like gravity. It keeps you grounded when emotions try to pull you off course. Without it, you drift. With it, you stand firm, even when the world shakes. Moral toughness is not just about having the courage to act once. It's about having the discipline to act rightly again and again, even when no one applauds you, even when it's tiring, even when it feels unfair. Because in the end, discipline shapes character. And character, not luck, not talent, not charm, is what determines who you become when life tests your soul. Chapter 5. There comes a moment in every person's life when the crowd moves one way and your conscience tells you to move another. That moment reveals your moral strength, not when you have support, but when you have none. Most people think strength is found in numbers. They feel braver when others agree with them, safer when others make the same choices. But moral toughness is different. It's the ability to stand alone, calm, grounded, and unshaken, when everyone else chooses the easier path. It's one of the hardest things a human being can do, because standing alone feels unnatural. You start questioning yourself. What if I'm wrong? What if I look foolish? What if people reject me? That fear of isolation can be stronger than the fear of punishment. We are social creatures. We crave belonging. But moral courage often requires walking a road where no one walks with you. There's an old saying, if you want to go along with the crowd, you must give up your conscience. If you want to keep your conscience, you must be ready to walk alone. That's the quiet price of integrity. History's moral heroes were not always celebrated while alive. Many were mocked, attacked, or forgotten. Socrates, who refused to betray truth, was condemned. Rosa Parks, who refused to move from her seat, was arrested. Galileo, who told the truth about the universe, was silenced. Each of them stood alone first, and only later did the world catch up. But you don't have to be a historical figure to face that kind of test. It can happen in your office when you refuse to lie for your boss. It can happen among friends when you speak up against gossip or cruelty. It can happen in your family when you break a harmful pattern everyone else ignores. The details change, but the experience is the same. You feel the sting of solitude. The temptation in those moments is to doubt yourself. But solitude is not proof you're wrong. Often, it's proof you're early. Truth tends to walk alone before it is accepted. To develop moral toughness, you must make peace with being misunderstood. Not everyone will see your motives. Some will call you stubborn, others self-righteous. But you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand yourself. There's power in standing alone when you know your reasons, because solitude clarifies. Without the noise of approval or applause, you hear your own conscience clearly. You learn to rely not on validation, but on conviction. Still, standing alone doesn't mean being arrogant or closed-minded. It doesn't mean you reject others out of pride. It means you listen, you reflect, but in the end, you follow the truth as you see it, even if you're the last one standing. Here's a lesson most people never learn. Moral strength is lonely before it's respected. The people who laugh at you today may one day quote you. The same world that resists integrity eventually depends on it. So, how do you stand alone without breaking? You anchor yourself in something deeper than approval, your principles. When you know what you believe in, solitude stops feeling empty and starts feeling sacred. You begin to realize that the only thing worse than standing alone is standing with the crowd while betraying yourself. Learn to trust silence. Learn to trust that calm voice inside you more than the noise outside. If your conscience is clear, you are never truly alone, because you stand in the company of every person throughout history who refused to trade truth for comfort. There will be nights when doubt visits you, when the cost feels too high, when you wonder if it's worth it. But in those moments, remember this: no one ever regrets doing what's right. People regret staying silent, following the crowd, pretending to believe what they didn't. But no one ever lies awake wishing they had been less honest. Standing alone doesn't make you strange. It makes you rare. And rarity, in a world of compromise, is a quiet form of greatness. Chapter 6. One of the greatest tests of moral toughness isn't standing firm. It's bending when you've been wrong. It takes strength to defend your beliefs, but it takes even greater strength to admit when your beliefs, decisions, or actions have caused harm. Pride resists it. Ego hates it. But truth demands it. Most people think that being morally tough means never backing down. But that's not toughness. That's insecurity dressed as conviction. True moral strength is flexible. It knows the difference between persistence and stubbornness. It's the courage to say, "I was wrong," without trying to protect your image. Why is that so difficult? Because admitting wrongness feels like weakness. It feels like losing control, like surrendering power. But in reality, it's the opposite. When you acknowledge your mistake, you reclaim your power from the illusion of perfection. You free yourself from the exhausting task of pretending. The most dangerous people in the world are those who cannot admit they're wrong, because they will justify anything to protect their pride. And every justification, they make chips away at their integrity until they no longer recognize the truth at all. Moral toughness is the ability to confront your own errors without collapsing, to face your reflection, not the polished version you show the world, but the honest one, and still choose to grow. Here's something to remember. Being wrong doesn't make you weak. Refusing to learn does. When you admit you're wrong, you do 3 powerful things. First, you honor truth over ego. You declare that reality matters more than appearances. Second, you build trust. People might lose respect for your mistake, but they will gain much more respect for your honesty. And third, you strengthen your inner compass. Every time you choose humility, you realign yourself with what's real. There's also a psychological freedom in admitting wrongness. When you hide your mistakes, they own you. You live with anxiety, afraid of being found out. But when you bring them into the light, they lose their power. What once was shame becomes strength. Consider leaders who have lost everything because they refuse to take responsibility. The lie always grows bigger than the truth they were afraid to face. On the other hand, look at the people who are in deep, lasting respect. They're not the ones who are always right, but the ones who are honest enough to own when they're wrong. Moral toughness is not about being flawless. It's about being real. It's understanding that integrity doesn't mean you never fall. It means you always get up on the side of truth. Admitting wrongness also demands a kind of humility that modern culture often lacks. We live in a time where being right feels like survival. People argue online as if every disagreement were a battle for identity. But the more you need to be right, the less you actually grow. It takes wisdom to pause in the middle of the conflict and ask yourself, what if I'm mistaken? That single question can save relationships, careers, and reputations. More importantly, it can save your moral clarity. When you can admit you're wrong, you stop fearing mistakes. You learn from them faster. You evolve. You become the kind of person others trust, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. The next time your pride tempts you to defend yourself at any cost, remember this. Integrity isn't about being the smartest or most persuasive person in the room. It's about being the most truthful one. Apologizing, correcting yourself, or changing direction doesn't weaken your moral foundation. It strengthens it. Because each time you do, you remind yourself that truth is your highest loyalty. Moral toughness isn't a wall of unbending certainty. It's a spine that stays straight while the mind stays open. That's how the truly strong grow stronger, not by pretending they're right, but by being brave enough to face when they're wrong, and becoming wiser because of it. Chapter 7. If your mind is a storm, your voice can be the anchor that steadies it. The way you speak, to others and to yourself, reveals the state of your discipline. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Tone, tempo, rhythm, and certainty. Together, they form the sound of someone who has control. Someone who has already won the battle within. Think about the most disciplined people you've ever seen. A soldier giving commands, a coach motivating a team, or even a surgeon during a tense operation. They don't shout in chaos. They speak with clarity. There's a firmness in their tone, a calm weight behind every word. You can almost hear the years of self-control trained into their voice. Discipline begins in silence, but it is expressed through sound. The voice of a disciplined person carries three invisible qualities: consistency, conviction, and composure. Let's break these down. 1. Consistency, the power of predictable speech. Your tone and choice of words should not depend on mood swings. Many people let frustration or fatigue reshape their voice. They sound angry one moment, apologetic the next. That inconsistency weakens authority, both in the eyes of others and in the mirror of the self. A disciplined person doesn't allow emotional turbulence to distort their voice. Their speech pattern becomes predictable in the best sense, steady, deliberate, and measured. People trust them because they sound like they can be trusted. Practice. Record yourself during a normal conversation and again when you're under stress. Notice the difference in pitch, speed, and volume. The more emotional the moment, the more control your voice requires. Train yourself to lower your tone slightly when tension rises. It instantly restores calm. 2. Conviction. Speak as if you mean it. Conviction isn't volume. It's belief transmitted through speech. When your words come from purpose, they carry natural gravity. But most people speak uncertainly because they think uncertainly. They use filler words, I guess, maybe, sort of, that leak energy from every sentence. A disciplined mind eliminates linguistic waste. Rule: if a word doesn't serve a purpose, remove it. The cleaner the language, the stronger the impact. Every unnecessary word weakens your willpower like clutter weakens focus. Exercise. For one day, forbid yourself from using filler words. Say less, but say it cleanly. You'll feel mentally sharper because linguistic clarity reflects mental clarity. 3. Composure. Calm is louder than force. When emotions spike, many believe raising their voice shows power. It doesn't. True discipline whispers, while others shout. Composure is audible control, the sound of someone who refuses to lose balance even under pressure. It's what makes certain leaders captivating. Their tone remains unshaken no matter how tense the moment. When you remain calm while others rage, you win twice. once over situation and once over yourself. Practice. Before responding in an argument, take one silent breath and lower your speaking pace by 20%. This simple shift changes everything. It tells your nervous system, I'm in control. 4. The inner voice of discipline. The voice that truly shapes your destiny isn't external. It's the one inside your head. If your internal monologue is scattered, critical, or weak, your outer discipline will crumble. But if your inner voice is calm, encouraging, and assertive, your actions follow. The disciplined person trains their internal dialogue daily. There's one sound even more powerful than speech: silence. Silence is where discipline regenerates. It's the pause between decisions where impulse dies and intention is born. A disciplined person doesn't fear silence. They use it. They let quiet moments sharpen their focus and cool their emotions. Try this. Before answering any emotionally charged question, wait 2 seconds. Not because you don't know the answer, but because you're deciding how to deliver it. Those 2 seconds are the mark of someone who leads their voice, not someone led by it. Your voice is your identity made audible. When it trembles, it tells the world your will is uncertain. When it commands, it tells the world your mind is disciplined. Speak less, but mean every word. Lower your tone when emotions rise. Let silence become your ally, because the true voice of discipline doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It simply speaks, and the world listens. Chapter 8. Every act of discipline is an act of discomfort. Not chaos, not pain, but discomfort. It's that small, silent resistance between what you want to do and what you should do. Most people run from it. The disciplined move toward it. That's the difference between an ordinary life and a powerful one. We all have an invisible border, a psychological edge. On one side is comfort, warmth, ease, routine. On the other is growth, challenge, uncertainty, and the unknown. Most never cross it. They think comfort means safety. But comfort is where dreams dissolve slowly, painlessly, without drama. Just quiet decay. Discipline begins exactly at that border. It's the courage to stay in discomfort long enough for it to stop controlling you. Your brain is built to avoid discomfort. It's ancient, wired for survival, not fulfillment. When you step into the cold, start a hard task, or face rejection, your nervous system sends a warning: retreat. But this instinct is outdated. You're no longer escaping predators. You're escaping growth. Each time you obey the voice that says stop, you strengthen weakness. Each time you ignore it, you strengthen control, rule. Every time you feel resistance, you're facing the doorway to progress. Discipline means walking through it, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. There are 3 levels of discomfort that shape every disciplined mind. Physical discomfort, fatigue, hunger, soreness. Your body says enough. You answer, not yet. That's the moment willpower hardens. Emotional discomfort, rejection, embarrassment, failure. These are the scars of progress. The more you expose yourself to emotional pain, the less fragile you become. Cognitive discomfort, confusion, uncertainty, fear of the unknown. Most give up here. They want clarity before action. But discipline thrives in fog. You don't need perfect information. You need the courage to move without it. Every great transformation comes from tolerating a little more discomfort than before. There's a simple formula few people see clearly. Comfort equals short-term peace, long-term pain. Discomfort equals short-term pain, long-term peace. The disciplined person chooses the second line again and again. They know discomfort isn't punishment. It's the price of freedom. You can't have both ease and excellence. You can't have both comfort and power. Every yes to comfort is a no to your potential. You can expand your discomfort threshold the way you train a muscle. Slowly, consistently, intentionally. Start small. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Work 5 minutes longer than you want to. Speak up once when you normally stay silent. Wake up when your mind says 5 more minutes. Each small act builds a layer of self-respect. Each moment you choose a harder path, your identity changes, from one who avoids discomfort to one who masters it. The disciplined don't eliminate discomfort, they transform it. They feel the same fear, boredom, and fatigue as everyone else, but they reinterpret it. Where most say, "This is painful," they say, "This is progress." Where most say, "I can't handle this," they say, "This is where I grow." It's not motivational talk. It's neurological rewiring. You're teaching your brain that discomfort is safety, not threat. And once your mind stops fearing discomfort, almost nothing can stop you. At first, discomfort feels loud. Your heart races, your thoughts scream, your muscles tighten. But if you stay in it long enough, something strange happens. Silence. The storm fades. You find calm inside the pain. That calm is mastery. That's what monks, soldiers, and athletes discover. That discipline is not about enduring discomfort, but becoming silent within it. You stop negotiating with pain. You simply continue. There's a turning point in every disciplined life. The moment when discomfort no longer feels like an enemy, but a signal, a compass pointing toward growth. Once you reach that level, you stop asking, "How can I make this easier?" You start asking, "How can I make myself stronger?" That single shift separates the disciplined few from the drifting many. Discomfort is not something to avoid. It's something to understand. It's the raw material of all greatness. Every time you face it, it carves a sharper version of you. So don't seek the path of least resistance. Seek the path that builds resistance. Because discipline isn't forged in comfort. It's forged at the edge of discomfort, where most people stop and you keep going. Chapter 9. Moral toughness is not only about knowing what's right, it's about acting on it. Knowledge without action is a lie we tell ourselves. The test comes when the clock is ticking, the stakes are high, and every second matters. That's when moral discipline becomes decisive action under pressure. Pressure is a magnifier. It amplifies fear, doubt, and temptation. It shows you who you really are in ways comfort never could. Most people freeze, overthink, or hesitate, hoping for more clarity, more support, or more time. But hesitation is the enemy of integrity. Every second wasted is a second your values are at risk. Decisive action under pressure requires 3 essential qualities: clarity, courage, and commitment. 1. Clarity, knowing what truly matters. When the storm hits, distractions multiply. Emotions scream, opinions clash, and possibilities overwhelm. Clarity is the ability to cut through the noise and see what truly matters. Ask yourself, what principle can I not compromise on? What outcome aligns with my values? The answer will be your guiding star. Without clarity, you act based on fear or convenience, and regret always follows. Practice clarity by anticipating difficult situations before they arrive. Write down the decisions that might test you, and outline the principles that will guide your choice. By the time the real pressure comes, your mind already has a roadmap. 2. Courage, acting despite fear. Even with clarity, fear remains. Fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of consequences. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Those who act decisively know that hesitation is a form of surrender. They recognize fear as a natural signal, not a stop sign. Every step taken in spite of fear reinforces moral toughness and strengthens the inner compass. Courage under pressure requires a mental rehearsal of your response. Visualize yourself making the right decision in advance. Imagine the difficulties, the ridicule, the backlash, and see yourself choosing integrity anyway. The brain treats this as a rehearsal for reality, reducing hesitation when the moment arrives. 3. Commitment. Following through. Decisive action is meaningless without commitment. The moment you make a choice, you must see it through. Half-hearted attempts are worse than inaction because they waste courage and blur your values. Commitment is the resolve to act with full presence, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's the understanding that moral toughness is measured not at the instant of decision, but in the execution that follows. Think of a firefighter entering a burning building. The decision to go is immediate, but the real test comes in every step, every move, every choice made under heat and smoke. Moral action works the same way. The choice alone doesn't define you. The follow-through does. 4. The role of preparation. Pressure tests unprepared minds harshly. Those who train themselves to act decisively under stress develop habits that withstand the unexpected. Mental rehearsals, scenario planning, and cultivating self-trust create a foundation for swift, principled action. Preparation doesn't eliminate fear. It contains it. The more familiar you are with difficult choices in advance, the less paralyzing they become when they appear in real life. 5. Accepting the outcome. Decisive action under pressure is not about perfection. You will make mistakes. You may face criticism, failure, or loss. Moral toughness isn't a guarantee of reward. It's a guarantee of self-respect. When you act decisively with integrity, you retain your character even if the world punishes you. That's the paradox. The external world may not recognize your courage, but your inner compass always will. Decisive action is a habit. Every small decision executed under pressure strengthens a habit. Eventually, acting rightly becomes automatic, almost instinctive. The key lesson: hesitation kills. Delay corrodes moral strength. But even a small, deliberate step toward the right choice under pressure compounds into a lifetime of integrity. Act swiftly, act intentionally, act with courage. And even if the outcome is uncertain, know this: moral toughness is built in the doing, not the waiting. Chapter 10. Protecting your integrity. Moral toughness isn't just about action. It's about restraint. It's about knowing what to accept and what to refuse. Boundaries are the invisible lines that separate your values from compromise, your principles from erosion. Without them, even the strongest moral compass can be bent by pressure, temptation, or influence. Many people believe boundaries are walls. They imagine them as rigid barriers that isolate them from the world. But boundaries aren't walls, they are filters. They allow you to interact with the world while keeping your core intact. They define what you will do and what you will not do, even under pressure. The cost of weak boundaries. Weak boundaries are subtle destroyers. You start small, saying yes when you should say no, tolerating minor dishonesty, compromising on minor principles. Each concession feels harmless, but over time, they accumulate. Eventually, you find yourself acting against your own values and wondering how you arrived there. Boundaries prevent that drift. They make your moral compass actionable, not just a vague guide, but a line you won't cross. How to define your boundaries. Start by identifying your non-negotiables. These are the principles that define who you are and who you want to become. Ask yourself, what behavior will I never tolerate from others? What compromises will I refuse, no matter the cost? Where does my integrity begin and where does it end? Write these down. Seeing them in black and white strengthens your commitment. Boundaries are promises to yourself, and promises are only effective when clearly defined. Saying no without guilt. The hardest part of moral boundaries is enforcing them. Saying no can feel uncomfortable. You fear judgment, rejection, or conflict. But remember, every yes given against your principles is a betrayal of yourself. Saying no doesn't make you unkind. It makes you responsible. It communicates to others that your values have weight and that your moral compass isn't for sale. Boundaries in relationships. Most moral compromises happen in relationships. Friendships, romantic partnerships, workplaces. People push your limits, intentionally or unconsciously. Moral toughness requires you to protect your boundaries without anger, resentment, or hostility. A clear boundary is a gift to both yourself and others. It creates trust because people know where you stand. They may not like it, but they respect it. And respect from others is only meaningful if it comes without self-betrayal. Boundaries as daily practice. Enforcing boundaries isn't a one-time event. It's daily practice. It shows up in small choices. Refusing to gossip. Refusing to cut corners. Refusing to bend your ethics for convenience. Over time, these small acts form a lattice around your character. They make it resilient against manipulation, pressure, and moral fatigue. The freedom of boundaries. Ironically, boundaries liberate more than they constrain. When you know where your lines are, decisions become easier. You waste less energy negotiating with your conscience. You avoid moral drift. You can focus on meaningful choices without second-guessing. Boundaries also create clarity in action. You don't have to wonder whether you should compromise or conform. You already know where you stand. That clarity is a powerful form of moral toughness. Every act of saying no strengthens your inner compass. Every boundary honored is a vote for the person you want to become. And every compromise avoided is a silent declaration that your values are worth protecting. Moral toughness is forged not only in action, but in restraint. The strength to say no is as important, sometimes more so, than the courage to say yes. Conclusion: the unshakable self. Moral toughness is not a single act. It is a lifetime of choices, a series of small, deliberate decisions that define who you are when no one is watching. It is the courage to stand alone, the strength to admit you're wrong, the discipline to act rightly even in discomfort, and the wisdom to protect your integrity with boundaries. By now, you've explored the key techniques that shape moral resilience: paying the price of integrity, choosing courage over comfort, doing what's right consistently, standing alone, admitting mistakes, mastering your voice, tolerating discomfort, acting decisively under pressure, and enforcing boundaries. Each principle is a tool, each technique a muscle, each practice a step toward the unshakable self. Moral toughness does not make life easier. In fact, it often makes life harder, at least in the short term. The world rewards convenience, compromise, and expedience, but it does not reward the quiet strength of someone who remains loyal to their values. And yet, those who cultivate this strength gain something far greater than fleeting rewards: peace of mind, unbreakable self-respect, and the certainty that no matter what happens outside, they will never betray themselves inside. Think of moral toughness as a compass in a storm. It doesn't calm the sea, but it keeps you on course. Every choice you make strengthens that compass. Every time you act with integrity, courage, or discipline, the needle becomes firmer, more reliable. Eventually, you reach a point where you no longer fear the storm because you trust your direction. And here's the ultimate truth. The path of moral toughness is not about perfection. You will stumble, you will hesitate, you will make mistakes. But what defines you is not that you never fall. It's that you continue to rise, guided by your principles, learning from every misstep, growing stronger with each challenge. The world will test you, tempt you, and try to sway you. The unshakable self is not a product of circumstances. It is forged in the quiet, relentless practice of moral toughness every day. As you leave this book, remember this. The true reward of moral resilience is not praise, fortune, or recognition. It is a knowledge that you are whole, undivided, and unwavering. That no matter what difficult choices life places before you, you will meet them with courage, clarity, and integrity. That is moral toughness. That is the strength that will guide you through any challenge. That is the unshakable self, and it is yours to claim.